So with relationship, we focused a lot on this in our last session and how it's through safe relationships where the adult is attuned to the child's mental state that children will be better at the emotional self-regulation, which is so essential for learning. So with children who've experienced trauma, we really need to take the time, I guess, to build a relationship with the child. And I know you already get this from your experience in the work. I just really want to reassure people that this is a really key strategy. And the point is that it often takes an intentional engagement in relationship building activities. If we think about as the teacher, Aide, you are often the people who are responding to a child when their behaviour is starting to escalate, or you're helping them with the things that they find difficult, right? When they're having trouble with schoolwork, or if they're getting into a bit of a scuffle in the playground. And you know that when you've built a relationship of trust with a young person who's experienced trauma, they are much more likely to respond to you in these situations. And, that relationship building, it's really simple things to do that. It's creating some moments in the day where connecting with the young person, maybe it's something that's a little bit of fun, or at least spending a bit of time together in those situations that don't have a lot of pressure around them. Yeah. And I also just want to dispel this myth that relationship doesn't mean that it's a soft kind of option. Relationships come with boundaries. It doesn't mean that we're letting go of our boundaries. The boundaries are fair and they're consistent, and that's a really important part of safe, attuned relationships. Consistency is really key. The child knows with 100% accuracy how you're going to respond to things. And the relationship's robust. It can survive a few bumps and there's opportunity for repair. I think that's such an important point. Repair is what we do after something's gone wrong, when things have calmed down. And in the schools that we ran, we often said that the best learning actually happens, when something's gone wrong, and then we have the opportunity to do some repair and talk about, what went wrong, why it went wrong, and what we can all do together, with the child. So the best learning can happen in the repair. I'm just going to use the adult response ladder to emphasise consistency, and I guess to help us think about the adult's role in escalating or de-escalating a situation with a child and maintaining a safe context which supports this positive relationship with our children. As I said before, predictability for the child is key. I know how the adult's going to react. I know that they're going to be calm. I know they're going to be consistent, and I know they're going to be safe. So when a child is becoming escalated, and remember from our last session that when they're becoming escalated, they're losing connection to the cortex, to the thinking part of the brain. They're going back down into the lower parts of the brain. And there are some responses that we can make in that situation that could well escalate the child further. So things like applying a consequence, using sarcasm is something that our kids are really sensitive to. A criticism, at that point, look at me when I'm talking to you. Eye contact is something that you really need to know your child really well around whether eye contact is something that's uncomfortable for them or not, because it can be for children who've experienced trauma. Personal space is a really important thing to be aware of, not standing over a child as they're getting escalated. Remember, we talked a lot about how children are scanning the environment for potential threats, and even when it appears to us that it's a low threat situation for a child who's experienced trauma, it can feel threatening, and one of the things that they might be doing is scanning to make sure that they've got some exits, and if the exit is blocked, that might feel threatening. Really complex when you've got a younger child who tends to run, and I know there's a whole heap of safety issues around that. Direct contact should very much be, again, take your cues from the child. So it needs to be initiated by the child. And I know that, there are some children, if you just, touch them quietly on the arm, that can just be a nice cue to help them de-escalate. But you wouldn't do that with a child that you didn't know, or that they hadn't initiated, some contact with you first. So that has to be very much take your cue from the child. Voice tone has a really huge impact on a child's sense of safety, and again, our children can be really oversensitive, or not, they're highly sensitive, is a better way of putting it, to voice tone. Same with facial expressions. Our children can often interpret a facial expression as being angry or disappointed, even if that's not at all what you're trying to convey. So just be aware your facial expressions can have an impact. And obviously, if adults are becoming dysregulated and they've got raised voices, or, there's a lot of frustration, they're going to be escalating events for a child. Yeah. Conversely, there are a whole heap of actions that can help, that are really good at de-escalating a situation. So responding with an empathy statement is a great thing to do. Distracting, changing, withdrawing from the situation, giving choices can be really great. Come and sit here with me, or, come for a walk with me, or finish reading at your desk or on the beanbag. Just a child having a sense that they have got some control can really help calm them down. Staff obviously are regulated using a calm voice. Getting down to a child's physical level is a really great strategy. And just be aware that the higher the child is becoming in his escalation, then, use fewer words, because again, if we think about the fact that the more they're escalated, then the further down in their brains there are, and language lives in the higher part of the brain, in the cortex. So they won't be processing language quite as well, particularly when they're getting more heightened.